Hello, let's do Storm on the Island by Seamus Heaney. As always, let's start with the poet. Seamus Heaney. It's quite an Irish name, isn't it? He is indeed Irish. He's from Northern Ireland, and when things went a bit more difficult during what's called the Troubles between the Northern Irish Republican movement and the Protestant Unionist movement, who wanted to stay part of the UK, Heaney himself moved down south to the Republic of Ireland, where things were more peaceful. He was generally supportive of the more Catholic Republican movement, which is associated in this country with the IRA, although he is not a sympathiser for anyone involved in the violence. Okay, that sets the context of the poet himself. Let's move into the poem. The poem is called Storm on the Island, and it is, of course, about literally a storm on the island. That's the first interpretation, and the one we're going to go with for now. The poem begins with preparation, shown in the first phrase there. We are prepared, we build our houses squat. I'm immediately just identifying the use of the first person pronoun we, which suggests unity, togetherness, that it's a group working on something together. They're preparing for this storm by building their houses, sinking them in rock and roof, putting good slate on. And they talk about the world around them. They've got an earth, a wizened earth. Wizened means shriveled up, so we're getting the impression of a land which isn't very agriculturally promising. In short, things don't grow very well there. It's not beautiful farmland. It's a place which is quite bare and barren. You can imagine it as a place with very little vegetation, just a lot of green and rock. There would be, but not an awful lot of trees and things. So it starts with preparation. Then he imagines the storm actually arriving with lines such as, when it blows full, can raise a tragic chorus. So it's moved from the physical preparation to the mental preparation for the storm arriving, with the future tense use of when it and can raise. Then the storm actually seems to arrive. This happens in line 14, when it begins. The flung spray hits the very windows, spits like a tame cat turned savage. The language becomes extraordinarily violent at this moment. Let's look at some of the methods Heaney uses to create violence. We have an awful lot of sibilance. Sibilance is alliteration with S sounds. So what have we got? Cliffs, begins, spray, hits, spits like a tame cat turned savage. We just sit tight while the wind dives and strafes invisibly. Space is a salvo. There's an awful lot of S sounds. That's used to, I think, Heaney uses this to create the sounds of the storm, the violent sense of a storm really raging, and the sea nearby crashing and foaming and all those things, all the noises that the sea makes. So Heaney really uses this to bring it to life. But how else does it create violence? Well, we've got a really slightly intimidating simile here, haven't we? Spits like a tame cat turned savage. Let's talk about why he uses this simile here. It's almost as if he's saying that the land is actually very tame, but when the storm arrives, it becomes extraordinarily violent. Its nature transforms. The other thing that connotes the violence within this poem is the sheer amount of words in a military semantic field. Words to do with the military or war. Military semantic field. You could also call it a semantic field of war. Which words are we talking about? Well, we've got hits. We've got strafes, which is when a plane is in the sky swooping down and machine gunning people. We've got salvo. A salvo is an artillery strike when lots of heavy artillery or shells or explosives are fired at the same time. Bombarded, again, similar to salvo, we've got lots of things exploding around them. Now, the fact that these are clustered so closely together when the storm arrives, strafes, salvo, bombarded, I think makes it abundantly clear to us that he's trying to suggest a sense of war. Now, we've talked about the sibilance then, sound patterning. I'm going to go back to preparation and sound patterning in a moment. If we look at some of the words that are used here, we get a sense of real solidity. These houses have to be built small and solid. We built our houses squat. squat means short and strong, short and sturdy. We've got squat, sink walls in rock and roof them with good slate. We've got very strong consonant endings to words. Very strong consonant endings, which for me creates a real solidity and strength within the language to symbolise how solid and strong the buildings themselves need to be. So let's summarise before we move to the other interpretation. We've got preparation, imagining it really coming to life, imagining it now really hitting and how violent it all is, and then this strange closing line. Strange. It is a huge nothing that we fear. Huge nothing that we fear. What an ambiguous line that is. And he opens this with strange in a very conversational tone. Perhaps he's saying that this storm doesn't really mean anything, that we always survive it. But I think this line makes more sense when we look at what this poem's also about. Is it about a storm on an island? Yes. Is it about a metaphorical storm? Yes, it is. It's about, as well, Heaney's thoughts on the troubles in Northern Ireland, which were about to kick off at the time that he wrote this poem. So could this instead be read as a metaphor for the, I'll write this in here, a metaphor for the troubles in Northern Ireland? A sense of preparation for something about to go wrong. Sense of fear. We've got prep. We've got fear. And ultimately, what does it lead to? Violence. So what about this closing line here? Strange, it is a huge nothing that we fear. There's echoes of this in Macbeth's speech, his Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow speech, where he says, it is a life, about life, it is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. That it's all futile and pointless. There's echoes of Wilfred Owen's exposure here, with that sense of, but nothing happens. I think it's about the whole futility of these troubles. The pointlessness of it all. What was it all worth? And of course there is the visual clue now to go back to the title. I often start with the title. I haven't today. I want to finish with the title. Storm on the Island title. Let's just get changed colours there because it overran. Let's look at, I think that many of you know where I'm going with this. The first 8 letters. Stormont. Stormont. Stormont is the Houses of Parliament in Northern Ireland. So there's a little verbal clue within the title there. It's not just about Storm on the Island. It's about Stormont. It's about the political troubles in Northern Ireland and the violence that they will bring. When Heaney wrote this poem, he anticipated trouble. I don't know if he fully anticipated how violent it was going to be. So we've got the power of nature, haven't we? We've talked with these poems about power and conflict. We've got the power of nature. We've got nature in conflict with man and man's responses against it. We've got military conflict because it's all a metaphor for the troubles in Northern Ireland. We've got a strong sense of place. The thing that I think about with Storm on the Island, can it compare with more or less every single one of the poems, which might make it a must-learn poem. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, just email me.